Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod with David B. Horne. He's an award-winning author, a champion of diversity and investment, TEDx speaker, entrepreneur, and CFO, founder of two companies. One is funding focus, that is, yes. And Add, Then Multiply has two books, Add, Then Multiply, and Funded Female Founders. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about David's career, investment, diversity, and everything in between. David, signer prise, like we say in French. Tell me a bit more about yourself and a bit more about what you're up to nowadays.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Charles. Pleasure to be here. So I was born and raised in Vancouver on the west coast of Canada. Qualified as a chartered accountant. I trained with PwC, moved with them from Vancouver to Zurich, Switzerland. Ended up living in Switzerland for 6 years, 2 years with PwC, and then I moved into industry. And then I moved to London in 1993, and I've lived in London ever since. So I guess key points to highlight. So between 2000 and 2010, I was the CFO of a couple of companies listed on the London Stock Exchange, did a lot of fundraising, a lot of M&A. I then left that world at the end of 2010, went out on my own. Initially tried to launch a wine business, which wasn't very successful, but was an excellent experience. A wonderful product, wonderful people, but dreadful economics. But great learning. And that was the beginning, really, of my journey of entrepreneurship. Since then, I've run my own consulting practice, basically doing kind of financial consulting to entrepreneurial businesses. But over the last 6 or 7 years, really focusing in more on entrepreneurs that are looking at scaling up through raising capital and buying other companies. And that's what led to me writing my first book, Add, Then Multiply. And so I've got a method that I've developed called FACE, F-A-C-E, Fund, Acquire, Consolidate, Exit. But it was interesting. As a result of writing that book, I started getting invited to speak at events. And 4 years ago, I was speaking at an event, and after my talk, a woman came up and asked me why so little funding goes to female founders. And I said, I have no idea, but I'll find out. And that's led to my second book, Funded Female Founders, which is really exploring the reasons why the level of funding to female founders is disproportionately low, and what can be done about it, and providing guidance and support. So that's the business funding focus. It's a social enterprise. And the other business, Add, Then Multiply, is focused on the scale-up strategies.
Is diversity profitable?
Yes. So there have been a number of very well researched studies. About 6 years ago, Boston Consulting Group published a report that looked at just under 400 companies over a 10-year period. And they found that companies that had at least one woman in their founding team generated 2.5 times as much revenue per dollar invested as all male teams. So yes, there's definitely profitability in diversity.
What are you up to nowadays? Where's your area of focus? Do you do consulting? Do you do investing? Do you still write? Are you writing a third book? Like, how do you split your time?
Yeah, no, I'm not writing a third book at the moment, although I have contributed to a book that a friend of mine is hoping to get published this year. No, my time at the moment is probably focused 75% on the Add, Then Multiply business, working with companies that are scaling through raising capital and buying other companies. And 25% is focused on my social enterprise, supporting female founders. For instance, just earlier today, I was delivering a 90-minute presentation to a group of women in Scandinavia. I'm connected to an organization there called Tech Nordic Advocates. And so we were doing a sort of a fundraising and pitching class.
How do you measure the effectiveness of your social efforts?
Wow, that's a good and a tough question to answer. 2 years ago, I tried to launch an investment fund that was going to invest in female founders. Sadly, we began the marketing for that the week after Putin invaded the Ukraine. So we were walking into a difficult time. We then had the tech meltdown. We then had the crypto meltdown. We then had government fiascos in the UK that have just continued. So we've actually decided at the end of last year to put that on hold. So that one hasn't been achieved yet. But apart from that, it's about the reach that we have. It's about the people that come to our events. It's about the people who join us. We've now got a list of over 2,000 female founders in 67 countries around the world, who've participated in one or more of our events. So it's really, it's all about spreading the word.
Love it. What challenges do you see female founders facing other than raising funds?
I think that's the main area. Again, the statistics show, I've quoted to you the Boston Consulting Group report. There are many others that I've seen, that women are very successful in running companies. I think in a lot of regards, women run better companies. I've over the course of my career, I've had some fantastic female bosses. I think once they can get the funding sorted and out of the way, actually women have just as good, if not a better shot than men at succeeding in business.
But do they even need funding? Like, I don't need a sugar daddy, like all my businesses are bootstrapped and I'm radically independent. I'm this sort of pirate. I also think that the businesses of the future and future billionaires and trillionaires are not going to be funded by in any means. They're just going to run on AI stacks that just self-reproduce pretty much forever.
They may. I mean, the advantage of funding is that it helps you get where you're going faster, because if you're a bootstrap business and you're starting to grow, you might be able to take on a part-time marketer. You might be able to put 5 or 10 grand a month into a Facebook ad campaign to drive traffic that's going to lead to generating revenue. Whereas if you've got investment behind you, you can hire a team of marketers. You can spend 100 grand or 200 grand a month on your ad campaigns. You can then build out your own technology. You can definitely use AI. Absolutely 100% AI is going to be driving so much stuff in the future. The benefit of having capital is that it allows you to get there a lot faster.
Right. Your books, why did you decided to write them, and what's been the impact on your career so far?
Yeah, so I came across a guy about 8 years ago, and he'd written a number of books and ran an accelerator course for small businesses, and I went on that program. And as part of that program, they recommend writing a book. In fact, one of his maxims is the book that changes your life isn't the one that you read, it's the one that you write. And I think for me, it was really a case of writing a book forced me to be really, really crystal clear about this is what I do. This is my sweet spot. And having come from a failed wine business to then building a consulting practice, in reality, I had taken on a bunch of clients that weren't really in my sweet spot, but they were clients that I'd won and continued to serve, but they weren't really where I wanted to go. And having published the book, it enabled me to go out back to them and say, look, you don't fit anymore with where I'm going. Let me help you find someone else who can do what you need, so that I can focus more on where I'm going and where I can add my clients the most value. And his Daniel's comment was absolutely true. Writing the book changed the game for me. I mean, my business increased significantly. I went from being just myself to having a team of 5 people. And it just gave me clarity and real authority too. You can be in a conversation with someone in a meeting or at a networking function or whatever, and instead of saying, well, here's my business card, or do you want to, here's my QR code for LinkedIn, would you like a copy of my book?
Right. All of the startups that you started must have a bunch that failed. The wine business was a good example. What challenges did you face along the way, and what did you learn from these tough challenges on yourself and your world?
Yeah. Really had to go deep inside myself. I mean, the failure of the wine business, I'd had a successful career. I'd trained with PwC, one of the top accounting firms in the world. I'd worked for a number of, high profile companies. I'd been the CFO of listed companies. What was really interesting was I had never sold anything before. And I entered an industry that I had no knowledge or experience of, other than having taken professional qualifications, so that I kind of had the academic side of things, but had never actually worked in the industry. So that for me was a huge learning about sticking with areas that you know and understand and have real domain knowledge, and learning about selling. I mean, anyone who goes out and opens up their own business or becomes an entrepreneur, you've got to be good at selling, because you're the one with the big vision. You're the one who has the big plans. You're the one who's going to be driving this company going forward. If you can't sell, you're going to really struggle.
Being a proponent of female causes as a man, sometimes it's like feels like, becoming a gynecologist and being a man. Do you feel that there's like challenges in like not being a woman and trying to help a woman?
Um, I've come across people who have questioned why a man is doing this, but I've come across 100 times more people who say, "Isn't it fantastic to have a man as an ally, to have someone so that it's not just a bunch of women complaining about something, but actually to have a man who's standing up for our rights, and to push and drive forward with us." So yeah, sure, there will always, I mean, anytime you stick your head above the parapet in anything, there will always be people who say, "Oh, what are you? Who are you to think you can do that?" But there will be a lot more people, if you're doing something right, that's beneficial for 50% of the population on the planet. Most people are very supportive. So yeah, there are a few naysayers, but they're way outweighed by the people who are very positive about the work I'm doing.
If you look at female billionaires, Oprah, Kylie, Sara Blakely, what do they have in common?
Wow, that's a great question. Haven't thought of that one before. Drive, clarity of where they want to go. Um, yeah, I remember watching Oprah rise from, small thing to global phenomenon. I remember watching Kylie when Kylie first came out with her. I was living in Switzerland in the late 80s, and Kylie came out with her first music video, and it was called "I Should Be So Lucky."
Kylie Jenner. Kylie Jenner.
Oh, I was
I don't
thinking
think
Kylie
that
Minogue.
Kylie's a billionaire.
Yeah, she might not be, but she's pretty wealthy. Okay. Um, good point. No, I think, drive, ambition, clarity of where they're going, and just this is this is the route that I think anyone who grows to that level has to just have a singular focus and not be diverted, male or female.
I think they're also unapologetic. Was it Oprah that was fired? I think she was also abused as a kid, and a bit of fuck offness into them, because in a man's world, you have a bunch of predators trying to hit on you,
Yep.
especially if you're pretty. Um, we're sexual creatures still stuck in the midst of evolution, it seems.
Yep.
And you've got a bunch of macho comments, right? Like us men's, we have a lot of testosterone and we're always laughing and making jokes, but the thing is that some of these jokes they hurt, because they've got a bit of truth in them. So I think these women they did develop a carapace, just like a turtle, and it's pretty impressive. They have, like you said, a single focus, and
Yep.
them making it is super impressive.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely, it
it's
is.
incredible.
It is. It is.
What do you foresee in the next decade for women? Will we have a women top 10 on Forbes, a self-made uh, women in the most richest in the world? And what would it take to get this?
Yeah. I would love to see it. I think more to my mind, more important than having a woman in the top 10 richest people in the world. I'd be more interested in seeing a significantly greater number of women successfully raising money and building businesses that might be worth 10 or 50 or 100 million, than, you know, than I mean, to become a unicorn, sure, it requires hard work and all of that, but it also requires a lot of luck. And I think a lot more economic value would be generated by you know, demonstrating that the wider base can still achieve success. And there was a study published in the UK in 2019 that said that if women started and were funded businesses at the same level of men, it would add 250 billion pounds, which is about 11% of the UK's then GDP, to the annual GDP of the country. So, I mean, imagine an 11% uplift in GDP around the world. That would be like $10 trillion.
I think these women on the richest list, they would inspire more women to go after it. So one of them on this list might mean a million these women starting businesses and thinking they can make it. So also it's interesting to take note. Oprah, she wasn't, her success is not much on funding, right? Neither was
No.
Kylie's. So that's interesting. Neither was Elon's. I mean, Elon raised some money, but he used his own funds, you know, so
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
also interesting
But
to evaluate the
Elon,
bootstrapness.
Elon has a very, very interesting take on raising money. You look at the launch of the Tesla Model 3. He went global with that huge campaign. He said, if you want to be on the wait list, put down your deposit now for $3,000. And he raised $300 million, and that allowed him to go out and build the factories that built the car. So that's fundraising, but in a different way.
You're right. I think he also has a big trauma with giving parts of his companies because he was hoosted out of PayPal and so forth,
Yep.
and he had various investors cheating him.
Yep.
So thank you so much for the value you've added today, David. Where can people find out more about you online?
Online, the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. It's David B. Horne on LinkedIn. Or if you want to find me, add then multiply. So addthenmultiply.com. And my social enterprise is called Funding Focus. It's funding-focus.com.